Hi everyone, it's Rob from Dads in Business, and in this session we had a great chat with an expert around resilience. What is resilience? Is it a buzzword? What does it matter? What's business resilience, personal resilience? Are you forgetting a lot about you, and what are we measuring ourselves against, and what is this mysterious Superman us dads seem to assume the role of and measure ourselves against? And how can we have better conversations at home to create a real family resilience unit? Some fantastic takeaways, I think, from this conversation with Sophia Ali, innovation expert, business consultant. So I hope you enjoy the session. Let's dive in. Hello, my name is Rob Taylor from Dads in Business, the support network for dads, busy dads, leaders, and dads with businesses to try and help bring the best of themselves to work and to home. To do that, we have a topic and a whole series of expert speakers and coaches and business leaders from around the UK and beyond to come and help on our mission of developing that purpose to bring the best of you to work and to home. So today on that topic, we're going to discuss resilience, and to help us unpack what resilience is, what it was, what it might be, how it applies to business and to personal life, we've got our friend Sophia Ali. Sophia, good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Rob. Fine, thank you. Glad to be on here for you.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about resilience. So would you mind just giving us a bit of a background into yourself and your hectic lifestyle, and why you think resilience is an important word, an important topic for us to focus on as busy men, busy dads, busy professionals?
I think, Rob, you hit the nail on the head there. Having multiple tasks in the category of being a dad, being the breadwinner, it must be very, very difficult to find that work-life balance. And I guess in the context of the resilience that we were talking about, I work for I'm an ACP for BSI. There is a resilience framework that exists in terms of organisations and how to respond and adapt to disruptive things that can happen in business. But I guess as it also looks at social contact and health and well-being of people, the interesting part of that is it carries over to your project with the dads side of it. I guess there is a link up there for the resilience part of it, where you can use that tool to do things for your personal life. So I guess everybody has to deal with personal, family, work and money life, and the family responsibilities that come with that. So I guess building up resilience is an important part of what you need to get through your personal life as well as your work one.
And Anga, for your perspective, and I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate here. What is resilience? It's a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? Why is it so important, do you think, that we focus on, build, nurture resilience?
For me, I think resilience is simply the ability to get back up after you fell down, and the skill to be able to do that. And I think it, for me, is really important, because especially the year and a half that we've had, the sideways swipes that many people didn't really expect. It's essentially resilience is the ability to actually, okay, we fell down, something happened. How do we recoup, look at what is going on, and what can we do to move forward with the resources that we have? Just linking this to potentially kind of like what you said about busy dads and busy leaders, and resilience can, I think, speaking for myself and the leadership coaching that I've been, one-to-one coaching for a year and a half. I've worked with a lot of leaders, and this is a topic that come up again and again and again and again. How can I be more resilient? How can I be more resilient? How can I be more resilient? So before we get jump even further, I think, Sophia, like, what is your definition of resilience?
Personally, I think it's very much like what we talk about when we talk about our mental health. It's like doing that Sudoku challenge every day and testing your mind. You build up resilience. It's not something that's just there. It's not something that I guess you can just read out of a book or just do. I think resilience has to be something that is built in by the very tasks that you do. And over time, you get a set of tools that allows you to then deal with certain things. And I think that without those tools and understanding what the mechanisms are, you can't basically have that resilient feature within you. If you look at backgrounds of people, you find that people who've come from underprivileged backgrounds are stronger because of what some of the experiences they've gone through. And if you now look at how leaders have become who they are, and you look at their background, where they come from, yeah, those who've been disadvantaged, whether it's been financially, whether it's been from an educational point of view due to disabilities, etc., they work harder. And they've obviously been challenged in different ways. And that results in, just like in business, yeah, a more resilient operational business, the same way you may find a more operationally resilient person. And I think for dads who have gone through those extremes, yeah, in business, there is a crossover into their personal life, how that must help them. But likewise, I guess if you've gone through something that's very, very, very tough, there's a point where you can't come back and bounce back very easily.
What about, I mean, I really like the point you spotted about people who come from less privileged backgrounds are naturally more resilient. What about if you haven't come from a more deprived background? Is it a case of, well, I think I can walk into a store and almost get resilience off the shelf and that's it, I've completed it? You know, but how do we check in with where we are, and is it something that we should actively pursue and work on? You know, Anger's getting the feedback of, I need to be more resilient, but why? Or is it just this buzzword, you know, and are we focusing our attention on this buzzword rather than the fundamentals of what resilience actually is?
Well, if we're being resilient, we're ultimately trying to get away from the fact that failure could potentially happen.
Okay.
So I guess if you've come from somewhere where you've worked hard to achieve something, yeah, you've probably had a lot more knockbacks to get there. And if you've come from somewhere where you've had a better start off in life, maybe the failures aren't that obvious until something happens. And if you, I guess, aren't resilient and you start to have where Angus said, the scenario where COVID happens and you're all of a sudden put in a scenario where you've got to fight or flight kind of thing, yeah, maybe that is where you've then got to tap into something that you've had before. But if you haven't had that experience before and you've never been in that situation, what do you tap in to then get that kind of fight or flight feeling back from? And I think maybe that's where that comes from, that you've actually built up a toolkit that you don't realize. I guess in some ways, mental health is the same way as well, that to have small bouts of that and overcome them makes you a stronger person, as opposed to going for one big serious breakdown where it's very hard to bounce back from. I think Angus said there about bouncing back is what they're wanting, and that can only come through experience.
Yeah, Anger, you're nodding away there. What's on your mind?
It's going through the crucible of the life in some way. Actually, this thing about what was it? I've got a sticky note. The only way out is through. You know, it's this thing about actually. I think it reminds me of it's linking to resilience is something about not directly, a little bit related, but there's something about the modern culture and this thing about aversion, you know, like this, to be resilient, what I'm hearing what Sophia is saying is this hardship or hardness or test or rubbing, you know, in some way that creates character. But there's something here about, I think in the modern world, we don't seek those discomfort. We move away from discomfort because it's easier to be in the comfortable place, even though the comfortable place isn't a good place, linking to mental health in some way.
I think also you're right, Anger, there, where it's pushing out the boundaries, where we sit in that comfort zone, yeah, and to challenge ourselves a little bit, like we would have done in the past, learn something new, do something new, would have given us a small steps to resilience. What's happening now is you've got bombarded with the internet, you're bombarded with things, you know, media, etc. And can you take all that in? And do you have to learn all of that? No. But we perhaps do things that feel comfortable rather than challenging ourselves to do the uncomfortable. And that is what happens in business as well. It's easy doing the same old and carrying on and thinking we're making money, etc. But it's when you do that uncomfortable part that you feel, well, hang on, I've actually achieved something. And that step change is tremendously different. And I guess in your personal life, that's where that's coming from as well. It's easy to go to work every day and earn the bread, yeah, and avoid some of the problems that you're facing at home, because those challenging problems you might have to actually sit down and do something about, and and you kind of hide behind those things. So I guess that's where you build up the resilience, by challenging yourself to do the unknown, to do that scary thing, yeah, to go take your kids ice skating and falling over, yeah, to fall off that bicycle. And maybe that's what we don't do, because we just feel, well, we're in this world and we want to get, the best out of it. So let's just go 100 miles an hour and think that that's just going to build up, the perfect resilient scenario to happen.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. I think I've just made a quick note. But does resilience therefore come with an appetite for ambition? Because you said we have to dip our toe in to almost get a bit burned and a bit burned and a bit, but that's where our progression is what I'm sort of getting from the conversation. So that are the two friends, resilience and ambition. He doesn't have resilience because he's not ambitious. He's ambitious, therefore he's got resilience. Are they friends in a way?
I think it would depend on what your ambitions are. Yeah. If you're actually doing something where you're doing, again, the same kind of role, or you've created the same kind of business version, probably not. But if you're actually going to go and do something that's slightly different and not against the norm, and therefore everybody else is thinking, what are you doing there? Maybe that is what is the difference between the two.
Yeah.
One step change.
And I guess to be happy with what a perception of failure is, because before I had kids, I guess my responsibilities weren't to my kids. It was pretty much to myself and my missus to muddle through and pay a mortgage, and we'll be all right because we can go out on a weekend. Then kids come along, and then that word no becomes more personal in a way, because you're not just saying no to me, you're saying no to my family. So I'm going to push on and keep pushing on until I get not a yes from the person it was a no from. I'll find someone who will say yes. And is it almost like tenacity as well, a resilience, tenacity based on what you're doing it for, and a bit about your purpose as well? Because you're right, you could just go to a job 9 to 5. It's no hassle. I'll just do this. And some people find that really comfortable. I like to challenge myself a little bit, and I'm sure others do as well.
So let's put this in a different context. So in a business context, we're all talking the buzzword, and my day job is all about innovation. Yeah. And what is innovation ultimately? Innovation is about taking a step to try something and potentially failing. And there's a bigger chance of you failing when doing innovation than there is of you succeeding. But it's the very fact that you've tried something and understood how you failed, which will give you that innovation step with the next idea that might be your success. Now, if you apply that now back in the context of the dad scenario again, yeah? Is it that you're going to the point where you want to be the superhero and therefore you don't want to fail? And therefore you start to avoid doing anything that will create that failure. Yeah, because it's just because you want to be that role model and you want to be the perfect Superman and you want to do all of this. Yeah, is it that you've actually started to become that step and basically failing? But that is ultimately the same thing. If you want to be successful and do those innovative things in your family life as well, you'd have to go through that process, and maybe that's what we're avoiding.
Wow. Go on, Anger.
There's a risk there. Like with any, like what I'm hearing is with any innovation, there's an inherent risk of something not working. So this is linking back to what you said, Rob, in terms of failure. So there's an element here about actually what does it mean to step into a zone, like you got the comfort zone and you've got the stretch zone. Another word for the stretch zone is the risk zone, is what does it mean to step and be in the edge of the comfort zone and the risk zone, and maybe trying something that you've never tried before. Like in this case, probably a difficult conversation that you've been putting off, that for what that topic at home that you need to have. But actually, you know what, you don't know what the outcome is, so you might as well just crack on with work, do what you know, do what you're good at, go into the world of work and blazing with the sword high, let's go into the and then be the breadwinner. So I guess this is interesting in terms of part of resilience is questioning yourself to go, what is it that you fear in a way? What's that step that you kind of know need to take, and conversation you need to have but don't want to?
You see, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, that's me.
Probably all.
Yeah, I'll just, if there's awkward conversations to be had at home, which happen because it's life, I don't like to upset the apple cart at home, so I'll just let it go, because it's easier for me to let it go. It's easier to let it slide. It might frustrate me a little bit, and then that carries with me a bit because it's unaddressed. It becomes the elephant in the room, but things are fine. I don't want to upset this bit. I'll go off with my sword in the air and I'll go back to my office and risk more things at work, which is where I'm more comfortable, because I guess I'm more, in control there, and I can control that a bit more. I don't want to control the family. That just needs to live and breathe and be its thing.
So the analogy again back to business then that you've said there, can you imagine what it's like to be a managing director of a business? You're sat there and that family is your employees. Yeah. Again, you tend not to naturally go for a fight every morning with somebody who's been annoying you, hasn't been pulling their weight, etc., because it's just like that same home life thing. Yeah. You tend to leave those people and think, well, you know, if I do the right thing and I say the right thing and maybe give them a pay rise or whatever else, they'll get motivated to do it. It's the same exactly at home, where you might have the same problem. You put your hand in your pocket, perhaps sort the problem out with a bit of a financial boost. I'll work a little bit harder, but the crux of the problem still sat there, which is that uncomfortable conversation you're having. I follow a YouTuber called Prince EA, right? He's really funny because when in his videos, they're very, very powerful videos, really emotional. And one of the things he talks about is going to that cliff edge and jumping. And at some point, you have to jump. And in business, yeah, you calculately make these decisions when you're supposed to jump, yeah. And in personal life, you don't do that because you feel that I'm not going to do that suicide. What happens if it goes wrong? What happens if I break? What happens if it turns into a fight? How am I going to have the time? Time is an important aspect of resilience, because you don't have the time to deal with some of these things, yeah. That time of being able to go through that process and learn from it doesn't happen. But you give all that time to your business. You'll spend 15 hours at work sorting a problem out, and over time you will find a solution, won't you? And that is what we don't do, I think, in our personal lives.
So because of all the time we put into becoming more resilient and focused at work, we naturally get better and better at work, is our perception. But at home, nothing's changed. It's a real interesting fix. Wow, yeah, my mind's ticking over with that one. I like that.
And it's finding that balance that you said, you know, when we started the conversation about personal, family, work and money. Yeah. Which point have you got enough money to do what you need to do at home and have that family life, that balance? At which point do you have you got the right amount of time at work that the others then work at, you know, got enough money in the personal, the family life? And I guess the one that's always going to suffer is always going to be either yourself, and in the context of your dads, I guess that's one of the things that we're tackling here, that you're not giving yourself enough me time. I have a lot of business colleagues who play golf, sports, whatever, yeah? And they feel guilty for taking that 4 hours out to be on the golf course. And I'm like, hang on, whoa, why are you feeling guilty about this? Yeah, you need me time just as much as your wife and your kids, and you know, and the business needs you to function as well. So feeling guilty about taking that time out, that might be the way that you build up your resilience, whether it's playing golf, sports, yeah, you know, doing something that's your hobby, whatever your interest is. So 100%. If you take that away, how do you have that time to think again? Because you've got to go through that process, as we've just said, about building up the resilience.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you flagged it without any sort of preface to that, because that is incredibly common to what we have in conversations with dads around the world. The first thing that goes is me time. I used to do that. It's something we so commonly hear. I used to enjoy doing this. I used to have time to do that. And to suggest that they carry on doing it says, well, I can't do that because, and it leads to guilt, which I think, I've just circled it again here, it leads back to that perception of failure. Because if we feel guilty about something, it means the wheels have come off, and guilt's not a successful feeling, is it? So therefore, does that then lead to the perception of failure, which means we're not just going to try it at all anyway, and we'll just go along with the ride and not take a bit of control about it, meaning that we're not building our resilience?
So I'll take it back to that context of golf again, right? I've known guys to go out for 4 hours and hit balls and actually achieve nothing because they're just having a really bad day. But while doing that, they're still getting that 4 hours of walk, which might be 7-8 miles or whatever. They're still getting the fresh air. They're still getting the value out of that. So why in that context would you allow yourself to fail at something, yeah, but not put yourself under the same pressure that you would do if you were at home and doing that same sort of activity? Yeah. Have you ever noticed that when you see a family out, everybody, the dad's always trying to be, achieving and trying to get those positive results, because it's almost like the superhero value will fall if they fail at something. Yeah. So that if you never switch off, how are you ever going to cope, and build up that resilience? Because again, back to that innovation example that I gave, without that failure, there isn't that build-up of resilience.
This is very, and as leaders of families or businesses, there's an element of the value, my worth as a human being is based upon my ability to produce and support the family. If I don't do that, then I am valueless. I am worthless. I'm not fulfilling my mission or part in this unit one way or the other. So it's interesting when hearing what has been said is there's an element that we talked about golf, like not achieving anything. It's with a couple of my clients, I said to them, like, you don't have to be good at your hobbies.
No, exactly. You can be pants at your hobby. It's the fact that you're actually doing it. Yeah. Yep. What you're not realizing is while doing it, you're building up something that you will then take back to the workplace and the family life and everything else, which is going to make you that little bit better because you've done it again. You've pushed yourself to do something that perhaps you're not comfortable with. Yeah. You're not under any pressure to perform and give any kind of results like you would be at work, like you would be in your family life, which is the hardest part of that. And by the way, obviously you're both guys here, talking about the women in the world as well. The same thing applies. When you're in a working life and in a family life, it must be very difficult, again, from a woman's perspective, to be able to balance those two and achieve the same level in both of them. Because the very fact you're doing multiple things means that you cannot be the best at everything. And this has come from society, and I guess social media is a part of this as well, where everybody's got these perfect lives and perfect things. And if you're not showing that, you're thinking, I must be failing. I mustn't be working hard enough. I need to put more hours in. I need to do more. Actually, guys, you might be better off than all of those people because they're putting themselves under extreme amounts of pressure for achieving that, or it's all fakery, as in, it's a bit like that picture of the war in World War II, where you're pointing at something, you're right, and over there it all looks fantastic, but over there is an absolute nightmare happening. But you haven't seen that part of the picture when they're enrolling you to the army. It's that scenario here, yeah. You're basically asking dads out there to be these superheroes when they can't be, and somebody should be telling them that, guys, it's all right, yeah, to not be perfect every day. It's all right to have a bad day. Yeah, it's all right to be yourself, because ultimately, yeah, your kids are going to know when you're having a good day and when you're having a bad day, because they have this sixth, seventh, whatever you want to call it, sense that is way beyond what you're going to, and you'll know because they'll draw you a picture, or they'll come and make you a silly sandwich or a silly little biscuit cake or whatever else they'll do, because they know that there's something fundamentally wrong. And that is probably more important, right? And when we're talking about the resilience factor, what we should be looking at is, how do we take those little steps, yeah, to buy back time to do something that will give us, yeah, the ultimate result that we want? And I guess that is all to do with having some defined goals. Like in business, you'd write yourself a business plan, yeah? You know what your future is going to be. Do we sit down at home and regularly look at where are we going? What is life looking like? When is retirement? Yeah, we talk about business retirement planning. How many families retirement plan what they're going to do, where they're going to live? Is it going to be about, the sunshine is that in Spain, or is it going to be, we're just going to be looking after our elderly parents back home? Yeah, we don't. So again, how do you build that resilience into your life if you're not doing that same sort of planning, but you'd spend hours doing at work? I'm sure Rob's got a fantastic business plan for all of his different entities.
Yes. No, it's a real good point there. And I think that application of you do this for your business, so why not do it for your home life too? Because I think sometimes life just happens to us, doesn't it? And
when you face that awkward question at work, you have a meeting, don't you?
Yeah.
And you sit down, you thrash it out. Right. Why can't you apply that same logic to your home life?
Yeah, flip charts are out, whiteboards are out, everything.
Whiteboards, yeah. I sit down and explain what's going on. Dad feels like this, mum feels like this. This is solution, yeah? And this is the ultimate answer. It's no different, is it? And if you're really good at your job in business, surely that transpires back into your own life. You use the same logic. All right, it sounds a bit extreme for somebody who maybe was brought up in the 1950s, but that's not what world we live in now, do we? So if we have to use technology, like you said, a paper and marker pen to do this on a whiteboard or wherever else, you'll solve the problem because you can see the problem. You can't solve something that you can't see.
Yeah. No, I think that's fun. And this reference you keep making about Superman, it's something that comes up again in our sessions where it's like, well, who we're measuring ourselves against. It's no wonder we feel like we're not performing and we're not successful, because it used to wind me up when I'd walk up to the school playground or something to do school drop off, and there'd be the perfect dad slinging his kid. I didn't sling my kids. I just found it a bit of an odd thing to do for me. Cool. If you want to do it, that's great. But they'd always walk prim and proper, and you think, he's the perfect dad. I'm a failure. Oh God. And I'm off to work and I won't be back for tea. And it's that you carry this sense of guilt around, which then makes you think, I can't do my hobby. I can't do this. I need to get back. And then I get home frustrated because I've not done anything that I wanted to do. And it's amazing how it can cascade. So I guess what I'm getting from this is to build your own resilience, you have to know what it is you want in the first place, because then you can measure where you're at. And if you know what it is that you want in the first place, if someone's knocking me off, cool, I'll come back on track. If someone knocks me off, I'll come back on track because I know what track it is I'm supposed to be on. And if not, we might just float about a little bit.
So you just said there about Dad and Superman. So I'm thinking back to my childhood. My parents bought an off license when I was 10 years old. And one of the things my mum and dad said was, this is going to be a family business. And we went, what does that mean? We're only kids. Well, we're all going to have to do a job because otherwise this isn't going to happen, right? And we can't afford to employ all the people to do what we need to do. So we got a lot of responsibility quite early on. Now, I didn't think that any less of my dad because I was helping him day to day to run this shop, yeah? It just meant there was a different dynamic. And maybe that is where that sharing and understanding what your dad is going through kind of thing, yeah, in his work life, like going to work with them and stuff and learning things about what's going on there, can help in your personal life. So we never had a work life and we never had a family life. It was all rolled into one because we were all working and we were all playing family at the same time. And maybe that is the balance that we need to look at here to create that resilience. Yeah, maybe in the modern world, we've defined everything into so many boxes, yeah, and little cubbyholes and pigeonholes that maybe that's what is what's lacking, that there isn't a crossover between. And the analogy we've given here today, we realize that business and home life is actually not very different and cross the two over. And maybe that is what we need to do more of. So back in the day, we had a more family oriented, like, you know, you had your company picnics and everything. Maybe that is where we're losing sight of things, where we're not seeing what your dad is going through doing his daily life. And because jobs are so complicated, it's simple. When you're a builder, when you were a butcher, candlestick maker, you understood what those jobs were. If somebody told you that, you know, you're an innovation and growth specialist, what does that actually mean? Does anybody have a clue what Sophia does during a day job? Not a chance, yeah? What does that really mean? Does that mean she sits behind a computer all day? Does that mean she goes to see clients all day? No idea. Yeah. And maybe that is one of the problems here, that we just actually don't know what dads do. And we just got this old-fashioned assumption. He goes with his briefcase, puts his trilby hat on and goes to work, and that's it. He sits in his office doing nothing. But in actual fact, he's, you know, his brain's frazzled by the time he gets home.
There's something here about actually shining a bit of a light on the work life. So to share some of what's happening in the work life to the family life, because there's this narrative, a typical narrative is like, it's okay, let me deal with the stuff at work myself, because this is my stress, This is what I'm dealing with. And then I create a boundary between work and home. And then so I don't take work home. You know, this is the narrative that men in general and dads don't do. It's like, I want to create this boundary, create a work-life balance. And then actually without realizing it, they actually take the work home, because there is no boundary, because they still check the emails in the evening, they still get the texts, the notifications on Slack still pings up at whatever time, at dinner time. The phone is still in the dad's pocket during dinner time. And then after dinner time, while watching TV, he's there on his phone, not realizing it because he's got emails to reply and respond to. And then by not actually shining a light and to the family, he inevitably still does what he doesn't want to do. So what I'm hearing is maybe starting to share some of what does that do at work to the kids, and then it's a difficult day to day, so that's a bit tired. So being more human, being more vulnerable in the home space to share with them what's actually going on, rather than going, no, it's all right, you know, like, it's a good day at work, don't worry about it, I've got it all under control.
I remember a friend once sending me a picture of her husband, and he'd fallen asleep, and his daughter had basically taken her mum's makeup and basically painted, you know, lipsticked him all up and all the rest of it. And when he woke up, you know, obviously could be in a right grumpy mood, and he actually took that, you know, as being, oh my God, I've just been brought down a peg, etc. And had a really wonderful switch off evening. And part of the reason she did that was because of what you just said, because he was always on his phone and stuff. She said, Daddy, maybe if I turn you into a girl, you won't be working so hard.
Wow.
Right? Because her concept was that maybe it was because that's what all men did. Yeah, because of the fact that he was always on his phone. And you know, when you see at the weekend, dads are out, they're out shopping, doing something with their kids. But yes, we're still switched on to our work life. And maybe that whole thing about work-life balance is what's caused this, that we're trying to leave work at work and home at home. And then we're trying to put ourselves under these huge pressures. And by doing the analogy I gave about my off license, the childhood, was maybe we got rid of all of that there is no such thing as work and there is no such thing as family. Like, it's all one and we're all sharing it. And therefore there is no switching off and switching on bit. Yeah, that you actually just manage the day and you do the bits that you need to do when they need to be done. And as long as the pressures aren't there and everybody's able to switch off and do things, maybe it's the quality and not the quantity of home life that's important. Yeah, this is always about, everybody thinks you need to put in hours and hours and hours, and you don't. Yeah, kids appreciate that little time of absolute quality, then lots of quantity.
Yeah,
and I think maybe that's where, again, if you started doing that whole resilience thing would be a whole different ball game as well, because you would then spend more time doing this back to this time again then, isn't it? So maybe the fundamental is that we allocate certain amounts of time to doing things, yeah, that we all want to do. So maybe it is that selfish list of me time, wife time, kids time. Yeah, I know that old couples historically used to up in the northeast of England, Friday night out was the wife's night out. Saturday night, it was a wife's night out. Sunday lunchtime was the boys' drinking day, because that was like when you went to the men's club. Maybe that's actually what you need to define, so you remember who you are. Maybe that is what we've changed somehow. And I guess a way to look at this is go back a little step and say, right, how did it work post-war? What were the good things of that? Not all the bad things. I mean, I know there's things where obviously we weren't so liberally minded, and, you know, men went out to work and did the breadwinning stuff. But if we look at some of those fundamentals, maybe there's something there that was working that we need to apply to the 21st century in a 21st century way.
I think there's lessons that can be learned, well, yeah, like you say, post-war, but also, I guess, post-pandemic, dare I say, post-pandemic. This new world that we're emerging through. We go through things, as Angus said earlier. And I think there's lessons that can be learned from the previous 18 months, isn't there? That we can, if we enjoyed doing something and found the time back there, why are we ignoring it now? Because we can carry on back to normal. What a test of everyone's resilience it's been, hasn't it?
So how about a radical way of thinking on this ending? Yeah. How about we don't just have dads working? What happens if the partnership bit became a work-life balance as you went through time? So maybe it's like a baton relay, yeah? You start off, Rob has the baton, yeah? You run with it for a certain number of years. Then basically you park up, the wife takes over, runs a baton for a few years, and you keep swapping. And what's to stop us from having that life? Yeah. So that we both have a career, you both have the look after the children, you both spend quality time, you both have the working balance. Yeah. And maybe that's what it is. And if that wasn't yearly, let's turn that into monthly, 6 monthly, whatever it has to be to work. Yeah. Maybe that is the ultimate. And then that brings you back to my little analogy of the off license, where you're all sharing the burden, and therefore the burden is not then just one person's.
Yeah, so resilience becomes not about business or personal, but it's family resilience.
Yeah.
What a takeaway that is. We were going to talk about business and personal, but actually it's about family resilience.
Yeah, it's about creating that. And maybe we look at small businesses and ask the same question. If you're having this conversation with lots of your fellow dads, maybe that is where it works, where you have got that small family business, yeah, and you're not having to work and go out to work and work for somebody else. And maybe that is what builds up, and maybe they've got more resilience because of that working style.
There's an element of just hearing what you said, Sophia. There's an element of an openness in conversation, the courage to have the difficult conversations that we touched on earlier. So Rob, if this is the kind of like you have to have those difficult conversations with the family unit, because we have this difficult conversation in business. So what does it mean to have this difficult conversation with the family unit in service of building the life, creating the family resilience that you'd like to have, and actually through these, so it's through how the ability. So I'm just reminding of the 5 dysfunctions of team, Leoncini. There's a foundation of trust there. If there's a foundation of trust, then there is the second layer is to be able to have discussions. This is where the difficult conversation comes in. Like, I have perspective. There's a partner that have a different perspective. We share a different perspective, and see what emerges from this different perspective in service of the vision, the goals that we want to achieve together.
I guess that assumes that the vision and goals are there in the first place with the family. And I think
that's the important one, Rob. Yes,
that is so often missing, isn't it?
Or changing, because we change, the family dynamics change, yeah, the time changes. What you might want when you started off in life and what your goals were are not going to be the same as you're growing older. And when you're reaching retirement, we said earlier on as well, when do we personally retirement plan anything? Yeah. We almost think we're going to live forever and that things are just going to carry on as they are. But as you get older, as your parents and family get older, your responsibilities change. And in this 21st century world, there's a lot more responsibilities than our predecessors have. People are living longer. There's lots more things to consider. So again, that's putting more pressures ultimately onto good old dad, because he's the one who's going to be, working forever to fund some of this.
Yeah, because we assume back to the roles that we've
historically
exist. This
idea that the man goes out to work and the woman stays at home, or some dynamic of that. Yeah, I know we've obviously got a lot more women working and a lot more women in careers and stuff, but that again puts a different type of burden onto the family life as well, because if you're both working, there's got to be something that's holding the glue together, as it were.
No, absolutely. I think
respect comes from both sides, yeah, to find that balance. So again, it's this whole thing of family, yeah, that comes into play.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think I'm just conscious of time, so we best think about how to wrap this up. But I think for me, there's a real takeaway in that family resilience, and identify what it is that you want as a family, not forgetting your own personal time, so you can contribute better to that family goal as well. But I guess in terms, Sophia, of checking in with you, how do you know how resilient you are? What can people do to go and test or research their own? Because it all sounds great, but it's very subjective, isn't it? Or is there a measure that we can look at?
I guess we could create a tool that would measure ourselves, or some kind of, I would call it not a measure, more of a baseline that we come back to. So when in times where we think, oh, we're getting frazzled and stuff, just like in business, you have some KPIs, or you might have a balanced scorecard, whatever else you're running your business on. Maybe it's that checklist that you come back to. So you've got something to have check that baseline. A bit like when you do a questionnaire and you look at your mental health and well-being. Yeah, it's just asking you a number of questions, and at the end of which it's saying mental health is good, mental health is bad, you need to go out and do something about it. Maybe that's how we need to look at this kind of resilience aspect as well. Yeah, in family life, that there's something that asks you a number of questions, you've got like that baseline, and then you keep going back to it yourself, and then knowing it, and eventually it will become something second nature, because you'll know when something's out of kilter, just like you do in business. It's that sixth sense that then gets built into you once you become a bit more resilient.
Yeah, interesting. And does that exist? Is there a place? Because there's a business framework for that, isn't there? So could we apply that to personal as well, do you think?
I can't see why not. I think that's a challenge for you, Rob. Maybe it's another business idea.
Brilliant. I guess in the short term, before me and Anga create such a framework, there is, I guess it's just about having better conversations and checking in with your goals, isn't it? To see where you're really at.
I think it's also that, as we said, pushing yourself over that edge to do something, yeah, that you think that will add some value to everything. Yeah, pushing yourself and the boundaries a little bit.
And
every day challenge.
Not Superman.
Yeah, challenge yourself to do something that you want to do. How about that?
That sounds like a nice place to wrap up this. I've loved this conversation. Actually, I think it's been really interesting, fascinating. Sophia, how can people connect or engage or find you? Where are you hiding?
Where am I hiding? So I live in the world currently of Innovate 𝐂𝐻. I'm one of the innovation and growth specialists working for RTC North. So yeah, if you want to have some of these conversations in relation to your business world, yeah, please feel free to find me on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. It's Sophia Ali, isn't it?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Sophia, this will be on YouTube and everywhere around the internet very soon, and I'll be sure to tag you in. But thank you for joining us. It's been a fascinating chat around resilience. So we're excellent. And
thanks for inviting me along, Rob. And great conversation, Anga.
Yeah, good stuff. Take care, Sophia.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.